Tavakatamritam tapta jivanam kavibiriditam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Shrimadatatam Bhuvingarnantiye Buddhita Janaha. The nectar of your words, the praise of poet-seers, elixir to parched souls, delight to listening ears, cleanser of all sins is great and glorious. They who spread it far and wide on earth are most generous. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good evening, friends. We will be continuing with our study on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And for those who are following, we are on page 181. And it's February 18th, 1883. And Sri Ramakrishna is visiting a home of a devotee, Govinda Mukherjee. And besides Narendra, Ram, and a few other devotees, some of Govinda's neighbors are also visiting. And it's not uncommon in India, if there's a holy man coming to a house, neighbors are going to drop in. It's like, you can't refuse anybody entry when a holy man is coming to visit. So here we have some neighbors of Govinda have come in, and they are now in discussion with Sri Ramakrishna. And the last time we met, one of them asked a question to what is the doctrine of Vedanta? And Sri Ramakrishna was given an answer. But in reality, that just starts the conversation because the person was not really interested in philosophy. But Sri Ramakrishna, understanding that, understood what he really needed. So he described, well, one must look on God with a particular attitude, either as a devotee of God or as you are God's servant and God is your master. So now the conversation continues with the second question. And so the neighbor is asking, "Sir, we are sinners. What will happen to us?" So the first question was all philosophical, but now the real issue is, okay, he has a sense of guilt. So now what does he do? So the master is replying, "All the sins of the body fly away if one chants the name of God and sings his glories. The birds of sin dwell in the tree of the body. Singing the name of God is like clapping your hands. Clapping your hands like you're scaring away the birds from the tree. So also by chanting God's name and glories, you basically are chasing the sins away. They don't want to be in that vicinity. So as at a clap of the hands, the birds in the tree fly away, so do our sins disappear at the chanting of God's name and glories." Then he gives another example. "Again, you find that the water of a reservoir dug in a meadow is evaporated by the heat of the sun. Likewise, the water of the reservoir of sin is dried up by the singing of the name and glories of God." So he here particularly mentions a meadow of water where there's basically a pit of water. In other words, that water is not being replenished by an external river or an underground spring, which then raises the question, well, if we are actually trying to chant the name of God, sins still keep coming to our mind, keep filling up that reservoir, like it will never empty. So he has not specified here. He's saying very simply, just chant the name of God and his glories, and he will empty that reservoir. Your sins will totally disappear. However, he also mentions in other parts of the gospel And I will read that part, actually. It says, suppose a man becomes pure by chanting the holy name of God, but immediately afterwards commits many sins. So he's refilling that reservoir. He has no strength of mind. He doesn't take a vow not to repeat his sins. A bath in the Ganges undoubtedly absolves one of all sins, but what does that avail? They say that the sins perch on the trees along the bank of the Ganges. No sooner does the man come back from the holy waters than the old sins jump on his shoulders from the trees. The same old sins take possession of him again. He is hardly out of the water before they fall upon him. So yes, we can go on chanting the name of God and His glories, and the moment we stop, our mind starts to wander off, and before you know it, it's being consumed by the world again. So it's not just as simple as just chanting the name of God. There are some other things that have to be done along with it. There are moral and ethical disciplines to be practiced. So here it's quite simple. And I'm suspecting the reason he hasn't elaborated on that in this case is because the poor person feels that his life is hopeless. His life is full of sin, and it's like, well, you don't want to dash his hopes. You want to give him something, at least to start with, that will inspire him onward. And then he will gradually learn, no, there are other things. The mind is unstable. What other things are needed? So, but then what is the Hindu concept of sin? Because it's not quite the same as the Western concept, at least for those that are raised in Christian theology. Here in Christian theology, you're convinced that, well, you are born as a sinner, and only God can free you from sin. But in Hinduism, they say, no, sin is a result of our actions. We are responsible for that, and we have to suffer the consequences of our actions. And Swami Nikhilananda has mentioned that God has instilled in man a sense of free will to do anything he wants. But man understands with experience that in that pursuit, one also has consequences to experience as a result of one's actions. So whatever sins we may commit are really sins that are, and from Hinduism's point of view, sins are considered any act that's not considered righteous action as prescribed in the scriptures, such as nonviolence, non-injury, truthfulness, and many other virtues. So, and if one behaves in any of those manners, it's not, Hinduism sees them more as mistakes to learn from. So yes, you learn from your actions, and from that, you become pure when you realize, oh, I should not be doing that. And from then on, you are responsible for the actions, not God. And you'll be absolved of your own sins when you change your actions. And in this case, make a vow not to repeat such actions. If you understand that your actions cause injury to someone, then you'll say, well, no, that's not what I want to do. And we learn that from the time we are children. And it might just be when you have siblings, you start fighting with each other, and you realize, oh, I just hurt my sibling. And you realize, oh, I'm exerting too much strength, or I wasn't thinking, or no, you don't poke your sister in the eye. You just don't do those things, and then you get scolded. But you're in a constant state of learning. Did you commit a sin? You did so without much thinking and no knowledge, but yet you'll still feel some sense of responsibility. So it's because of that sense of responsibility that now has made you feel guilty that, oh, you caused harm. And if you cause harm to a person that you love, then you don't want to do that again. Now, if you have love for humanity, you will not want to injure anyone in humanity, not just any person, not any creature, nothing. Not just by physical means, but you don't want to hurt them with your words or with your pen. So that would be like the practice of nonviolence, for example. So, and then truthfulness. Well, it's extremely difficult to live in the world and be completely truthful. I mean, it can, even your truth can harm others. So if your truth, if you're speaking the truth and it harms others, you've committed injury. So then you have to start to figure out, well, what's the proper understanding of my actions? So yes, God has given us this sense of free will, but we are basically, anytime we are attached to anything in the world, that is a sinful act, because it is a selfish action. It's not righteous living. So that is when this person is saying, "But we are sinners." Well, he's realizing that so many things he does, he doesn't know how will he ever be absolved of them. So he's, and that's the case with most people. They don't know how to purify the mind. There's only one whose mind has been purified, beginning with moral and ethical disciplines, self-control, being able to hold back one's passions, direct them towards God, instead of to the world. Then one will be able to become free from sin or free from unrighteous living. So, and then by practicing chanting the names and glories of God, one's mind is less inclined to, will be less interrupted by worldly thoughts. If you actually sit and try to think about God, you're always encouraged to, well, when a thought comes, don't act on it, let it go, and remind yourself, think of some holy thoughts, until that becomes a dominant part of your mind, that, yeah, when some worldly thought comes in, let it go. Don't let the mind become attached to it. So, and then in our actions, in our interactions with people, if we can look at all beings as God's children, instead of, oh, that's my child, or that's my nephew or my sibling, and so I love them more than anybody else, when really we should be seeing, no, God is in all creatures, love God in all beings. So we are not just limited to our own, first our love for ourselves and our love for our immediate family. Then we only love our friends, but we don't love somebody else's friends, or we don't love humanity. So we kind of like have to grow out of ourselves. And every time we shrink into ourselves, we are committing sin, only because that is not our true nature. Our true nature is we envelop everything. There's a certain oneness in in everything. So the way sin is defined is not necessarily a condemning activity. It's any time that we are basically withdrawing, our mind is going away from our true nature. So, and when we do think more and more about God, also our yearning increases, because that becomes a more dominant thought. We find comfort, and we find that it basically, our mind gets concentrated because we are now thinking about something that we love. We develop a certain love for it. So then our love for the things of the world diminishes. And that then further increases our attachment to God. That also increases our concentration, because now we are concentrating on God and not on some worldly activity or worldly aspect. And through that concentration, we also get realizations. Truths get revealed to us. God reveals truths to us. Just as when you concentrate on some subject, the deeper your concentration is, the more you will understand about that topic or that subject. So also the same with God. One thing is that we have to pour all our emotion, all our energy into that, just as you would when you're studying for an exam. You may really love a particular subject. You may understand so many things about it. And the more you think about it, the clearer and clearer your understanding becomes. So also with something like, you direct your mind toward God. So chanting the names and glories of God is just one step. It's not the only step. So here, all the sins of the body fly away if one chants the name of God and sings his glories. In the beginning, when we do that, we feel elevated. We feel inspired. But it's not sustainable without building the foundation to sustain that. And that's where our moral and ethical disciplines, our constant vigilance, our introspection, all those other yogas have to come into play here so it sustains us through those periods when we cannot always chant the name of glories of God, when we are actually interacting with the world. Now Ramakrishna continues, he says, you must practice it every day. So it's not just chanting the names and glories of God that you practice every day, it's even all the preliminary things. It's just like if you go to a gym, or if you're an athlete, if you're a soccer player, just going on the field and kicking the ball around and scoring goals, that's not all there is to soccer. There's also, you got to know the rules of the game. If you're going to be an effective player, you also have to understand what the different players are like, so you know how to tackle them and beat them. So also you need that background information to be able to properly play on a team. So also you need the other disciplines to properly chant the name of God, to properly develop that love for God. So even those things have to be practiced every day. And that's what prayer and meditation are all about. There's prayer, meditation, and then there's also the chant of God's name and glories, and living a moral and ethical life. All of those things are required to develop more and more attachment toward God and increase one's love. Then he says, the other day at the circus, I saw a horse running at top speed with an Englishwoman standing on one foot on its back. How much she must have practiced to acquire that skill. So no, you don't just jump up on the horse, stand on one foot right away, keep practicing that. You should be able to at least stand on one foot on the ground that's not moving first. So yes, that might be a circus act. And you could even say that the best meditators, the best spiritual aspirants are in a way mental circus act. It's a circus act, a mental circus act. Because you're balancing so many things going on at the same time in your mind, and you're trying to focus on that one activity, keep your mind one pointed on God. But There are so many things that you need to do. The mind wanders here, can't sit up straight, all kinds of things happen. Old memories, what's happened in the day, what you have to do after meditation, what's pending on your to-do list, all these things are going to come in. So just how to focus that mind. I'm sure that even this English woman, if she has a child at home and has to think, well, who's taking care of my child? Is he doing okay? Well, she's trying to do this and not fall off the horse. So much multitasking has to go on, but she has to put all of that aside to be able to do this one act. What to speak or what we might have to do when we sit there to meditate. If we haven't experienced all those things, then are we really meditating properly? Because all those things are part of, they are there, whether we like it or not, we have to deal with. It's not just going to be smooth sailing for anybody. And then he continues, weep at least once to see God. So what is this weeping business about? Well, when we actually weep about something, what causes us to weep? Either we feel overwhelmed with something and we want comfort, or we weep and cry about something that we really want. And if we really want God, we have to weep and cry. They say that the tears wipe away the sins. So weep at least once to see God. Put all of your emotion into it. And that will generate a stronger and stronger sense of yearning. And when you're in that state of weeping, just thinking about God, your mind is fully concentrated. You're looking for relief. So weep at least once to see God. So then he continues, these then are the two means, practice and passionate attachment to God. That is to say, restlessness of the soul to see him. Just as we want to when we want to attain some worldly goal, we will sacrifice so many things to achieve that goal. How much can we sacrifice just to realize God? We need that kind of restlessness. Sri Ramakrishna began his midday meal with the devotees. It was about 1 o'clock. A devotee sang in the courtyard below, "Awake, mother, awake. How long thou hast been asleep in the lotus of the Muladhara." The Muladhara is one of the yogic centers at the base of the backbone, where the Kundalini resides. Fulfill thy secret function, mother. In other words, awaken the Kundalini. Rise to the 1,000-petaled lotus within the head. That's the Sahasrara, where one experiences samadhi. Where mighty Shiva has his dwelling, swiftly pierce the 6 lotuses and take away my grief, O essence of consciousness. So this song is, or poem, or song, I guess, is you're praying to the Divine Mother to experience samadhi and to direct that Kundalini energy up to relieve you of all misery, to experience God. So here in the song, Sri Ramakrishna went into samadhi. His whole body became still and his hand remained touching the plate of food. He could eat no more. After a long time, his mind came down partially to the plane of the sense world, and he said, I want to go downstairs. A devotee led him down very carefully. So at this point, he wants to go downstairs. That's where the musician is. But he doesn't have full body consciousness yet, so he's not able to, by himself, feel steady on his feet. So he's getting some help. So still, but he's got downstairs. the devotee led him down very carefully. Still in an abstracted mood, he sat near the singer. The song had ended. The master said to him very humbly, "Sir, I want to hear the chanting of the mother's name again." The musician sang, "Awake, mother, awake. How long thou hast been asleep in the lotus of the Muladhara." And the master again went into ecstasy. And that is the end of the day. I won't continue with the next day because it's a totally different subject. But so here, Ramakrishna is basically, this is an example of where one is hearing the names and glories of God, in this case of the Divine Mother. And the effect of this prayer has so inspired Ramakrishna that he is experiencing divine ecstasy. And if we could become as pure in mind as he is, work toward it, even just the mention of the name of the Divine Mother can raise our mind immediately without doing all this preliminary stuff, because we've done it already through our years of practice. So that at some point, just the mention of Krishna or Ramakrishna or any of those divine inspirational characters, any name of God will propel our mind to think of God. And then at that point, it will become easy as this. So we should not just give up. We should actually think we know if you put in the work, you get the results. The results is that at some point, a lot of effort at the beginning, but at some point it becomes easier. And I think we should sort of like take that as a hopeful goal for all spiritual aspirants. So I will conclude with that. I will give some announcements. Tomorrow evening, Swami Brahmatmananda, who stays at our retreat property, will be continuing his class on the Gospel of the Holy Mother. This will be done by Google Meet. It's not necessarily an in-person event, but via Google Meet. The link will be on our website or on the email notification you received. This Friday, Swami Satyamananda will continue with the class on self-knowledge, Atmabodha. It will be part 11. I'm sure it will go on for many parts, but we are at part 11. That will be at 7 p.m. I forgot to mention that tomorrow's class with Swami Brahmatmananda is also at 7 p.m. This coming Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Tapovan is our monthly meditation retreat. You don't need to sign up ahead for it, just show up. And that will be at 1 p.m. There will be snacks and so forth afterwards. And that will be guided by Swami Satyamananda. And on Sunday at 10 a.m. here in Seattle, Swami Satyamananda will give a talk on Buddha, the greatest man ever born. This is a quote by Swami Vivekananda. So it is Buddha's birthday celebration. So it's not a puja, it's just a talk. So you're all welcome to attend that. And mother's children, if you have children, bring them 10 minutes before the talk. So I don't know if there are any questions here. No questions, none online. I will conclude with a chant. Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampa Dritavigraham Vai Ishavataram Paramesamityam Tvam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namama. We salute that Ramakrishna who is without blemish, eternal, and infinite in forms, who has assumed human form out of compassion for the devotees, who is God incarnate, the Supreme Lord, and who is most worshipful. Om Peace.